That's why it's really important to have a plan and understand what your goals are.
In fact, my camel out there is suffering right now with a broken back.
So I actually found Pepe when it was only a couple of hours old, and I'm like, oh, this is a funny meme.
Oh my god.
Yo! Who is this Degen?
The old man is swing trading over years at a time. And it's like, that's where the real money is made.
The answer is a permanent loss. With single-sided staking, you don't have to worry about the permanent loss.
If you're aware, if you're disciplined, you can hone that into further financial growth.
Financial freedom, to where you can actually live life and not have to be constantly living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, more or less, right?
We are live. Welcome, everybody. Degen and Degenettes, Nate, Zenith, Will, and our special guest, Access Alive. It's been a while since we've had a guest on, and we are super excited that this time it's Access. We've had a few Whiskey Wednesdays the last few weeks, and we've had a great community support. We had a bunch of people reach out to us tonight saying, hey, can we hop on Whiskey Wednesday? And I said, fortunately not. We have something even better. We have Access coming on talking about new project that he's working on, something that's really going to help to further the Hex and the PulseChain ecosystem. And super excited to talk about that, talk about the overall market update, the PulseX, Hex, Inc. We got Richard Hart stream. Richard Hart, October 31st coming up. So that's going to be a big one too. So a lot going on within the industry. Green candles also help. And so we are excited to have you. Access, welcome. How you doing, buddy?
Thank you very much for having me, guys. Shout out to the Creative Crypto guys. I just got off with them. We did a pretty good macro overview, and we talked a little bit about the new project as well. So I'm happy to continue the energy here with you guys tonight, and thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, man, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. I remember the first time that I met you. I think it was the Hex conference. Was that 2023 or was that 2022 now? Man, so long ago.
The first one, we'll see, that would have been end of the summer of 22, right? I think. I
believe so, yeah. So that was kind of right after we launched the Degen Roundtable, and you were one of the first people to really give us, I won't say the time of day, but really support us and help build our community and say, hey, these guys are real, they want to help, and they've been here a long time. So, I don't forget that, and I appreciate all that you've done for us since almost about 2 years now. So thank you for that. And we're excited to continue to build that relationship and hear about what you're working on today.
Yeah, it's been a pretty ambitious project. I haven't said too much about it. There is an article called the Access Alive Fusion on my X feed, which is kind of lengthy and cryptic and probably not that useful for most people. But there is also like a explainer vid made by that Crypto Hexplained. And that's probably something worth checking out if you like more like slow form, audio explanations of how something works. But we'll dig into it all tonight. And just a reminder that the whole point of creating this thing was to be a proof of concept for the HexCom fusion, because the ultimate goal here is to get more long-term staking behavior on Hex to make the system more valuable. And we think we might have cracked the code to help make that a reality faster than it otherwise would on its own. So
yeah, and I want to get into that because I have some thoughts on that, and I know the guys on the panel do too. So let's just say a quick hello. Nate, how you doing, buddy?
Doing all right. Just kind of keeping on just with the daily stuff, right? Different day, wow, I really messed that one up. Anyways, how's it going, guys? I'm having a great day, and this is going to be a great conversation. And yes, you are 100% correct. We need more stakers because we need the liquidity to stay stable. So looking forward to this. Zenith, what's up?
Not much. I am just on for stream number 2 of the day. Earlier, I was on with Crypto Coffee, and we were talking all about the Richard Hart case coming up in New York City, which, by the way, you have not gotten your tickets yet for not just... Well, first, RSVP for the actual hearing itself. If you want to show up and show your support, please do so. But also buy tickets at thepulsechaintour.com for the PulseChain Tour event happening the following day, that Friday. We're going to have a lot of cool Hexicans out there, a lot of people to hang out, chat, and then some of us might even be speaking or be talking about that. So if you have any legal questions, you can ask myself, Chuck, Coffee, and then any of the other speakers out there. So yeah, please go show your support and help the boys out. Keep this thing going. That's what I got. Will, what are you up to?
Aloha, amigos and amigettes in the audience and live. My name is Will Stevenson. I'm one of the hosts here at the Degen Roundtable. I travel around the states doing ironworking and building towers. And in my off time, I chat with these assholes. We have a good time, and we learn about cool new projects. Axis, I'm super stoked to learn about what's going on today. What you got for us, bro?
Yeah, if you guys want to jump right into it, that's good with
Well,
me.
hold on. Hold on, buddy. Before we jump into it,
Almost.
I'm not going to let you jump the gun. Shout it out, Will.
It's time for motherfucking chat shoutouts, ladies and gentlemen. I almost forgot. Apologies. I saw it sitting over there, and then I realized my mistake. Go ahead, Brendan. Take us through some chat shoutouts, Mrs. Producer.
Let's pull them up. Nate the Great, the first one today. It's alive. It is. It's Axis alive. Funkmaster Hex, Axis my man. Cheers. A little whiskey maybe. Moonpill Rational Optics. Welcome as always. Degens, Hexicans, Pulsicans, assemble. We are here. Tam, our number one. What's up, fam? Great to see you as always. True Moxie, Tam, what up, girl? Hey. Smiley face, laughy face. Kay Hudson, 15-year-old Scotch, anyone? Well, I'd be curious to know what 15-year-old Scotch you were drinking. That sounds delicious, if it's Macallan or otherwise. Hexican Army, what's up, Tam and Mox? Welcome, glad to have you. Maddie All In, Hex Therapy Live, sup, y'all? What's up, Maddie? Great to have you, as always. Our resident dentist, Crypto Sloth, yo.
Dr. Tooth Slayer himself.
We got Frank White with a bang, Degen gang. What's up, Frank? Good to see you. Great call last night. Centurion 54X. LL Nate, great picture. It is a great picture. Pulse X, let's go. Green Yeats. Nice evening to talk about the new project with Calm going. Boom, boom. Yes.
Yeats.
Very, very excited. Yeet. Clintrons, becoming one of the regulars here. Glad to have you all in the house. What's good, Degen crew? Howdy, Axis.
This show, that's what's good.
Hex Monkey, fire emojis. Every time Axis is on.
Every time that Hex Monkey's always dropping those hot fire emojis.
Yep. A couple more here. Ted Nelson, evening, gentlemen. Are you feeling alive? I'm feeling alive, awake, alive, and ready for this bull market to pop off.
We're so close.
So close. And Christopher, our Richard Hart Maxi, welcome here. Yes, Richard Hart Maxis are welcome here. We have quite a few of them in this channel, quite a few of them on this panel. And it's a topic of conversation that comes up a lot within our Friday shows, Wednesday shows, Sunday shows, our Telegram streams, and our private chat. It's always on our minds. So with that, thank you.
Almost like we read all of Sci-Vive and took like 6 weeks to do it.
Yeah, 6 weeks of Sci-Vive. You guys also read the response from the SEC and Richard's lawyers, and then Richard's lawyers' response to the SEC, all live in one day, which took like 7 or 8 hours. So yeah, this is a place to get any and all information regarding Richard Hart and his ecosystem.
I'd say that we're not just financially committed, but also time-wise. We have that sunk cost fallacy going pretty good at this point.
Time and energy.
Exactly.
And we're hoping to buy even more of our time back after this.
Reading Richard's response to the SEC's response was that was like one of my favorite things that I've done on this channel so far.
Yeah,
super fun.
All right, so Axis, before we hop into before we hop into a live, what have you been seeing lately, just in general, just overview Richard Heart ecosystem, PulseChain, HEX, PulseX? There seems to be a lot of positive momentum, not just on the charts, but for a while we saw a lot of infighting on Twitter, on X. We saw just sort of the community butting heads a bit. And now with green candles, it seems like I see a lot more positivity out there. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think the lows are in on Pulse. I think we were watching that wrapped ETH pricing on Pulse for quite a while there, and it did, for 140 days we've just been making higher highs and higher lows on that chart. And so that just meant that some market maker or some smart money or some force was sitting there basically absorbing the supply at that level on the wrap Pulse wrapped ETH pair. And so ultimately that was the sign that things were going to turn around, and it was all foretold in that chart. And even though at the time, like, we might have been making like lower prices against the dollar, the Pulse ETH pair was fine, and we actually was going up. So
yeah, I think that's
it's
a good
good.
point.
The lows are in, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And it feels, I think that's what everyone kind of is, in alignment with, is that we all feel like the lows are in for Pulse, and this move on Hex is, you only get a move like that on Hex maybe twice a year, and it was the biggest one yet. And I think based on the lack of sell pressure that's following through in these preceding weeks, what you'll continue to see is that it's going to be able to hold its levels, and that a lot of the worst is behind us. Yeah. And so I think the community is excited about that, as well as like the fundamentals of, we're coming up to the hearing. So we'll be taking one foot forward on that one. And then, the content's getting more abundant. Like the other night, there was like 3 or 4 people streaming at the same time again. So there's definitely something in the air.
Yeah. One of the things you just mentioned there, I think is really important. You mentioned the wrap Pulse to wrap ETH price, right? It's like, I feel like a lot of people look at the dollar of PulseChain and PulseX in this ecosystem, when really we should just be looking at how many coins we can cultivate, and not worrying about price until we really start to pop off. One of the things that has made people afraid and sort of jeet their bags is red candles. Every time we've had a little bit of a pump, we've seen a lot of sell pressure. And you mentioned this time we haven't seen so much. And I think that's because we've had so much sell pressure over the past 6 months. Every time we pumped a bit, we see a lot of sell pressure. But that's actually good, right? Because a lot of the people that were waiting to sell are out. And so that means less people, as we go up, should be jeeting their bags. And I think that that's going to provide more positive foundations for each leg up that we make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was nice to be able to see a lot of those bigger wallets that, weren't so good for price have kind of run out of coins, or they're down to like a majority of their coins are now run out. And so that sets up nicely and gives us some nice headroom for price up and not so much drawdown.
Excited. Nate, Zenith, Will, anything you guys want to add to the positive aspect of how PulseChain's looking right now?
Feels good, man. I mean, it's been a long fucking time coming. I'm just gonna, that's my thoughts for this thing. It's like, geez Louise, we've been buying these dips for way too long. It's about fucking time. Not that the blockchain owes me anything, but golly, it feels good. So I'm just relieved it's finally started.
Will, but if you ask me when PulseChain launched, what my total token count would be right now,
do we lose Brendan?
It would be a fraction of what it actually is. What?
Never mind. My internet fuzzed out there for a minute. I thought that we'd lost everyone. Go ahead. I'm going to mute myself.
What I was going to say is, I sacrificed for PulseX. I expected to buy some more coins. I never thought that I'd have an opportunity to buy potentially generational changing amount of coins within this ecosystem. So even though there's been a lot of red candles, I think for the people that have been continuing to DCA, continuing to put money into this ecosystem, realistically, long term, this bull market even is actually going to benefit us. And so for those that have continued to believe, continued to DCA, continue to buy, maybe people that have bought some of the better meme coins that have been able to cultivate more core coins, I think it's going to help us long term. So even though it was challenging to go through that hard times, go through that essentially second bear market for Hex and PulseChain, it's going to benefit us in the long run, just because of how many coins we've been able to cultivate.
Absolutely. Well, think about it this way, right? So you have so many people who will sit there and look at like Solana meme coins and like, oh my God, I put $100 in, now you made $1 million. Okay. How often is that actually going to happen? So what you end up with, what I think at least is what's going to happen here with PulseChain people versus like Solana meme people is this. You've got the lottery winners, okay, who it's like, wow, you got so lucky. I wish I could do that. Let me go get a bunch of lottery tickets, right? And then you have, the wealthy, the wealthy people who know how to make money, who know how to keep their wealth, right? Who to preserve their wealth. And these are the people who've been holding through all the way since 2021, 2020, right? And they're going to be the ones who eventually are just going to be like, hey, I can help you out too, but it may be a little bit more painful than just yeeting a bag at a lucky coin, right? I think the wealth preservation is definitely going to be in the minds of Pulsicans as we start maybe heading into the next bear.
I think it's going to be a relief that people are actually going to come out of this with some capital, and they've learned so much in this process that they'll be prepared to wait for good prices and be able to become good supports in the system long term. I hope what we get out of this is, people that are long term committed to PulseChain and see it as like a really good opportunity for a long term play, and not just like one cycle cons basically. Because that's the whole foundation of the whole system was on Hex, which is one Hex cycle. This is something that Crispy talks about. One Hex cycle takes 15 years to complete. It's not like a 4-year cycle, right? Because the guy that, well, there's a lot that happens in that period, in that cycle, and there's cycles within cycles in there as well. So, but it's very interesting how how this system is set up on a foundation of long-term committed investors, fundamentally. And I think, Will was saying that, he's tired. He was getting tired of buying the dip, but we'll look back one day and be like, damn, I'm either really glad or I regret not buying enough. So, but that'll be kind of the base case, is you're in either camp, right? You had all that time to accumulate coins, and basically the sack set was able to, we were able to shake the tree of this top sacrificers, and a lot of that filtered down now to like the tens of thousands of people that are still here. And so it's been a redistribution of wealth from the few to the many. And it's really good because that really gives a lot more upside, right? Because not one guy can murder the chart. Plus, a guy that, if one whale distributed his money to 10,000 little guys and they all have different take profit areas, well, then they all have different re-entry areas too. So it creates nice market structure on the way back up.
Yeah, it's a great point. And you mentioned that this whole ecosystem is built around delayed gratification, right? Big hex staking, liquidity providing within the PulseChain ecosystem, PulseX ecosystem. But that PulseChain is kind of built for hex. And one of the things that last time, the last sort of, I would say, hex run up with, a lot of people weren't able to take profits, right? Because they didn't have liquidity because they staked. But now people are worried about staking a bit, because they're like, hey, I need liquidity to be able to sell in case price goes up again. So we need, as you mentioned, to find a way to get people more excited to stake again, right? To more excited to look at a long-term outlook rather than a, hey, 1 year or one cycle, because most people aren't going to get rich in one cycle. It's going to take 2 or 3 cycles to really make that generational wealth. And so you need that long outlook if you're truly going to be successful in the crypto game, because most people that have a 2 to 4 year outlook are going to fail. And therefore, we need to kind of reacclimate people's sentiments and understanding that this is a long-term game, right? It's not a short-term get-rich-quick scheme.
Yes, and these guys that are going to play, this is my speculation, guys, that in this next bear market, once the top is in, and people are feeling richer and they have something in stables and something in Ethereum, and they've protected some of that wealth that they got. I think everyone's going to be waiting for the big market crash. And I just don't think Hex, for example, is going to give you that minus 99.89% again. It's just not going to. That was a function of the 10,000X, the failure to launch May of 2022, the actual testnet V3, and then subsequent launch of mainnet in 2023. And then the Richard Hart FUD tweet on EHEX.
Yep.
All of those 4 situations set up for, triple bear market, you could argue quadruple bear market for the ecosystem. And what you really needed to do is you needed to take one asset and dilute it amongst 4 assets and then rebalance everything. And you had to, make these considerations for like 150,000 to as high as 300,000 hex holders. So you took a set of, like, let's just say 150,000 people, and you shook the whole container up and you're like, all right, guys, find out where fair value is. So that process takes a really long time to play out. And the drawdown is nasty on everything because you're inventing 3 or 4 new coins out of thin air. So this is a one-off, right? You're not getting a PulseChain 2.0. You're not getting another 99.89% drop onto Hex next time. So I would encourage everybody to if you do get, minus 85% Hex, you got to start buying there. Like, this is coming down off the top, right? You don't have to buy until you get down into those levels, but like, people are going to probably miss the bottom next time because they're going to think they're going to think the downturn is going to be as long, and they're also going to think it's going to go as low, and they're going to be wrong on both fronts, because what I believe is happening is the crypto space is maturing, and there's the highest demand events ever in the ETFs, and just like public acceptance of Bitcoin and Ethereum. And so that's going to overflow into our ecosystem as a forked off version of Ethereum that got rid of all the ETH Foundation and, a lot of the negative externalities of the miners and all the baggage that came with ETH. That's all been kind of washed clean. And so I think the PulseChain ecosystem, specifically Hex, has a bright future where, volatility is always going to be part of the game. But I just don't think you're going to get the same setup again unless like something crazy were to occur, which I just think is like a near zero chance of getting another blockchain or something.
Yeah. And look, who could have predicted the SEC going after Richard? In fact, not only Richard, but suing Hex, like suing protocols, suing
pretty major.
Like, makes no sense. And we're not going to see I don't think we're going to see anything like that again. I think the SEC is kind of going to be soon on its way out, hopefully, of its litigious attack on the crypto sector. And you look, another benefit long term for the PulseChain and the Hex ecosystem is when Richard Hart beats the SEC, that's going to be a huge positive momentum for our ecosystem, but for crypto as whole. And as it creates precedents, potential legal precedents throughout all of crypto, that could bring other people's eyes and other people's wallets into our ecosystem to follow Richard, since he was a leader in creating positive precedents in the law system for crypto in general.
I think we all agree, right?
That's the hope.
Agreed.
So Zenith, you're our legal expert, but anything you want to add before we hop into? I don't really want to hear about it live.
Not really. That was all really solid stuff from Axis, having the quad bear market, and the truth is that we probably will never see anything like this in the downside again, because we've had a lot of the major questions answered pretty much immediately after they've been posed, which is that what happens when we have 4 tokens? Does one of them go differently than the rest? What happens when we have 2 forms of Hex? Is one going to be better than the other? It's like you said, the volatility should theoretically be less and less every cycle, and this is a good case to show that I think it's probably going to be so the next cycle around, which is a good thing because markets like stability, and if you're a long-term staker, having that a little more guarantee, so to speak, of price action actually going up should help you have some more confidence in staking long, because it should give you some confidence that the price value is going to be there long-term, which is good. And at the end of the day, more 555 stakes is a good thing.
Nate, have you have any 555 stakes for Soren?
Actually, I do not. I have a different plan rather than 555. But however, the next cycle, yes, I'm definitely going to be creating a bunch of those. My plan has to do with wealth creation and then wealth preservation. And that's my short-term plan currently. And then you move into, the wealth preservation.
Future planning, yeah.
Exactly. But you got to it's a little bit different. And plus, I'm more of a farmer anyways. So I've been extremely heavy in anything having to do with the farms. So,
Will, you have something quick before we hop into live?
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm super duper thankful that we got this 99.8% like drop, because one, that's a fucking powerful campfire story. Like when we come back from that, that's some fucking street cred, you know. Nobody else in the cryptocurrency sphere that I know of has gone down 99.8%. I know that Sami said that there's been many coins that have dropped 99%, but I don't know of anything that's gone 99 and then another 0.8. It's basically just about 100, you know. So if we can bounce back from that, that would be absolutely fucking crazy and phenomenal. And like, there's not a lot of opportunities in life where you have the opportunity to buy diamonds for pennies. So like a lot of the times you can buy diamonds for, you know, $10, $20, but like if you can buy a diamond for a penny, like that's a fantastic opportunity. It just like, I got into Hex when it was at 4 cents around about like day 1000 or something like that. And I was like, oh, wow, this stuff is like, you know, 90% down from the top. It was like 55 cents or more than 90% or whatever the fuck the math is, right? It was down a lot. And I was like, oh, cool, I'm buying it at 4 cents. No big deal. And then, you know, it went up before the PulseChain launched. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. Just dumping money and dumping money and dumping money every single paycheck, just making myself go broke. And then like, and then fucking even worse. And it's like, oh, this sucks. And I was like, wait a minute. I could get so much more. And I've just been like compounding and compounding and not compounding. That's the wrong word, but just building the stack up this whole time. And it's been like zero regrets. So we'll see how it goes. I might regret it in the future. We'll see. It all might turn out to be just a big giant fugazi, and everything goes to zero. Bitcoin goes to zero. Gold goes to zero. The S&P 500 goes to zero. Who knows? Maybe we all crash in a big giant you know, meteorite explosion or something. But like having the opportunity to buy the dip for so fucking long is just something that's like as painful as it was. It's like this was a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I'm glad that I had it, and I'm ready for the ride. And if not, then, you know, I guess I'll just make more money doing other things in life and then figure it out as we go. But that's all that I got. I just wanted to say thank you for whoever made the bottom. I gladly scooped a lot of your bags up, and I hope many of us did on the panel as well.
Yeah, Hex under a penny. Holy moly. That was a life-changing opportunity that I never expected to get. All right.
I was going to say that, you know, the PulseChain bridge disagrees with you that this is just a fugazi. We're on a positive slope. There's more money coming into PulseChain than going out right now. So that's a positive sign. And I'm basically only measuring stable coins and wrapped ETH. I don't really need to measure anything else. Those two things are on a positive slope. So if that becomes a trend, and you hit new all-time highs on bridged-in funds, I mean that's a huge sign of strength, right? And it starts slowly, and then it can double, and then it can double, and then it can double, and pretty soon you got 5 doubles, and you got over $1 billion on the bridge. That's going to set us up nicely for a nice trading environment for crypto to come play.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and right now, it seems like the growth has been organic this time, right? It seems like we have a lot of new people, a lot of organic building here from the bottom up. You know, we haven't seen any OA or SAC funds being rotated in during these pumps, at least that we've noticed. But I think that's super strong, and you know, getting people that believe, that are in here, that have been waiting for this long, it's awesome, and I'm super excited. I'm super stoked for this community. But we got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight, so let's get into it. So you have a new project that is going to be launching here in the near future. We know that we have the Access token, which is done very well for people that got in early or bought the dip. It's done very well compared to Pulse, generally speaking, since launch, really. And now you're working on something that is not only going to help Access, but really help our baby Hex, and something that is going to potentially revolutionize staking. So tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. So yeah, the whole, you know, Zenith said earlier, you know, that this is really a chain that's based on long-term committed players, like at the foundation. Like those are the guys that hold the most economic energy. And you can just see that in the market cap, a user supply of Hex right now. Hex is like, the Hex market cap is double that of the of Pulse right now. It's like triple what PulseX is, and it's like 15 times more than Ink's market cap. Which, side note, Ink is the cheapest coin right now, so keep that in the back of your mind too. But on that note, like we we really wanted to see with this dev team, we really wanted to see if it's possible to make long-term staking commitments more juicy. Like, is there a way to pay people to commit to a system for twofold? For one, to lock them in and adopt them into it, and then to make them basically a mouthpiece for the protocol. And the way that the inflation works in it is it basically, the more adoption that the system gets, the more the end payouts grow. So like when your stake matures, or in this system it's called a commitment, as more people adopt and use the commitments system, the end payouts grow for everybody. So the inflation is proportional to the number of users committing access to the system. But how it proves the hex, or how it will help Hex, is through proving the hex confusion. So Communis has already existed for a couple of years now almost. And what the system does is it pays you to stake long, essentially. There's nuance to that, but the basis of it is it pays you to stake for a long time. And like, earlier today, before COM pumped up and doubled up in price,
Crazy.
You could stake Hex. You could, like, we'll just use a simple number. You could stake $50,000 of Hex and get $2,500 of COM back right away. But at the end of the day, a whale had come into COM and doubled the price, and now all of a sudden, somebody could come in and stake $50,000 for max length and get $5,000 of COM back, doubled it, right? So, I mean, just think about that mechanically, what you can do. Like, if you decide that you're a Hex whale and you have, like, I don't know, $5 million of Hex, and you could take 50 grand, stake it. Well, you could pull that COM off from the start payout and use that to buy more Hex and pump the Hex price with it. Or you could lock those gains in, or you could sit on it. And because you understand, this is the metagame here, is like, with these two systems, is like, how many of these guys are going to understand that it's in their best interest to hold the COM, because it's a tokenized t-shirt, hold the COM to put those put your vote towards marketing dollars for the system to get more people to come in behind you and stake long, which makes the whole system rise in value as supply shortages occur at a faster rate.
But it also gives you a little bit of a safety net, right? Think about people that have had to emergency end stake because they need to pay a bill, or something came up, or they didn't plan enough, or something like happens with your magic. I don't know. The name is
Kareem.
Kareem. Thank you. Sorry. Something happened with Kareem, and he had to emergency end stake for his lawyers, right? Like, this gives you a little bit of a fail safe, because now you can take some money out with COM or live without having to worry about potentially emergency end staking. So there are multiple, I think, value propositions that you're building out here. You see it that way as well?
Sure. Yeah, that's definitely one element of a very dynamic system. And for example, the amount of money that you get back from an access commitment is basically decided by the free market. Like, we didn't want to corner the contract and try to force the market into certain situations. We want to create a situation where the market, which is the most powerful tool in capitalism, to be able to decide what's the right price for a live to get the most amount of adoption. And if you can get enough guys on the same page, and they understand that by supporting the instant rebate, you're basically using that money as marketing dollars to get more guys to come in and burn access out of the supply, that's good for the access and the alive price, because you're making the entire system more scarce and deflationary. And you're getting an instant benefit in the form of an instant rebate to do it. So that instant rebate number could be anything. It could be 5% as high, or it could go over 100%. Imagine, how much would here's an example. How much would I have to pay you to go buy access off the market and commit it to the system to get that? Like, how much would the instant rebate have to be? Is it 20%? Is it 50%? Is it 80%? I don't know. Like, I honestly don't know. Like, is 20%, like, if you went and bought $1,000 and if you got $200 back, is that enough to get you to do it? Is it enough? Is $500 enough to get the next guy to do it? That's the big question that we can't answer, but the free market is going to be able to answer it for us.
I love it. I mean, I think that being able to sort of pair some of these tokens together is also going to create a good opportunity for all waters rising. So not only for Hex, Axis, Alive, Communists, I think that this builds a stronger foundation for all of these coins. And if they're all supporting Hex, and this is what PulseChain was built for, right? Then that's bringing a lot of value to the community. I think a lot of people recently be like, hey, all these projects are being built and it's extracting value from the community or from the core coins. But in this case, you're actually trying to strengthen the core coins. You're trying to get people to stake Hex longer. And this is hopefully, and I think it will bring more value to the core coins.
Well, so think about this again mechanically on Hex. Hex is like a $30 million pool. Like the Axis only has $1 million backing it right now, and then it's bonded to coins that have anywhere from $2 to $5 million backing them. So there is some sort of shared network there where if buys and sells comes in on Axis, it can sort of affect those other, let's say, virtually like $7 million of connected pairs. But to bond Axis straight to Hex, it's outweighed 30 to 1 in terms of weight. So the only way that you can influence or impact the Hex price with Axis is by bonding it to COM, which is much more illiquid, and we have enough interest from large COM players to bond it to Alive, so that in the event that Alive is price positive, it's going to drag up the COM price with it. And that in doing so, you're basically putting marketing dollars for long-term Hex staking. So it's going to make the market put a bid on Hex to buy it, to stake it for long, or that's at least what we think is going to happen. So
this is kind of the idea, right? About where you have, like, say you have, the big bubble that is Hex, and then you have your smaller bubble which is Axis down here, right? And so if Hex goes up, obviously Axis goes up. But if you start trying to pull up Hex using Axis, it's just not going to work at all. So the better idea to incentivize people to get into Hex, which is now more expensive because it's so big, is now you've got kind of like COM, that now you, which are a bigger bubble than COM, is now linked to. And so then you can kind of pull that up. And since there's a reward for staking out the big whale, right, that is Hex, now you can get these ones to have their price go up as well. And that's going to be a reward ultimately. And I'm assuming you're making Alive as kind of a way to grow Access faster, to be able to grow COM faster, and ultimately everything kind of rises that way, correct?
Yeah. Yep. So the way that, so yes, you're correct on multiple fronts there. The only way for Axis to get adoption in this case is if the instant rebate is juicy enough to get a new player to decide, okay, I like the idea of getting 50% of my money back just by committing to the system. And the reason why you'd commit to the system for 50% back instantly is because there's an additional 200% waiting for you in 8 years. So for example, so let me preface by saying the max length commitment you can do in Axis Alive is an 8-year commitment, 20 days, which is half of like a Hex cycle. You think of a Hex cycle being 15.2 years, 8 and 8 is 16. So it's roughly half. It's also on an election cycle. It's on an election year, and it's also on a Bitcoin halving year as well, assuming we launch this year. So, the timing of it's right to do 2 4-year cycles in one max length commitment in Alive to cover our macro trends. And then you figure two of those 4-year cycles fits into a 15-year Hex cycle twice. So you get 4 cycles inside of a 15-year Hex cycle. So that's kind of how the math breaks down on like the theoretical maximum that you could get out of in terms of cycles from Alive. So if you were to, let's say, commit $1,000 of Axis because you went to the market and you bought Axis and you got $1,000 of it, and you were to commit it and you got 50% of your value back now in Alive, well, you got $500 of Alive now in your hand immediately upon commitment, but then you have an additional 200% more Alive at your end payout, plus half of your commitment amount of Axis. So $500 of Axis exists out there as well. So you're committed to both. You're committed to your half of your locked Axis deposit, but you're also committed to Alive because you have to think of the the downstream effects of supporting the system for both of those tokens now, because you hold both down there on year 8. So over time, as in the beginning, a live payout, start payouts, the initial payout you get, that instant rebate, is like set at 20%, and the end payout of a live is set at 80%. But as time goes on and more of the community supply of access is burned through the system, more of the weight of the rewards is shifted to the end payout. So less of the inflation comes to the start payouts for later guys, but everybody gets a bigger end payout, so that the inflation at the end payouts grows proportionally with the amount of adoption you get or the amount of access is committed through the contract. So the math is very, very fun and interesting and sticky. So that's how the access and Alive works in a nutshell. It's a first lock and burn contract with a free market floating rebate, and that'll all become more clear as you see the front end, see the other video content that's coming for it, and just listen to it and game theory about it a little bit more. But so that's one element of it. But then you think that's just one layer, and I'm a complex sort of guy. I want to bond it to communists because, again, as we said before, if this system it proves that, because the mechanics are very similar between HexCom and Access Alive, if this system is successful, not only will it receive an immediate price appreciation, but it can also drag COM up with it because of the bonding between them as well, and which should increase the amount that Hex long-term Hex stakers can receive back from their coupon rate. So anyway, that's kind of like the idea here on a very simple level. There's many layers to the game theory and things I have up my sleeve in terms of how we can make this system even more valuable long-term, because it's audited, it's immutable, no admin keys, it's modular, so you can build stuff on top of it later. And it's a one-way thing. You can't go backwards. Once access has been committed, you can't go backwards, which is an important concept to consider, because what it does is energy can flow through the funnel, but it can't come back through. So the Alive that is minted is really representing the value of access that was locked and burned at the time of its commitment. And so what I think is going to happen is both of those ratios or those prices are going to oscillate like this over time, and they're going to both grow proportionally. And remember that a lot of that access and end payouts from Alive are all pushed out for a long time. So it gives the price of both a lot of headroom in the short term, like up till years 4 and 5. And then if we can get through the hyperinflation period of years 6, 7, and 8 of Alive, and everyone getting back their access as well, and survive that past year 8, it'll be similar to what happened with Hex. If we can get through that part, I mean, by then, even by year 5 or 6, like this thing will long since proved whether or not the communist mechanics work or it doesn't. Like it should be very apparent within the first, like I would say, 6 months whether or not this system is working as intended.
So you said the max time to stake is 8 years. Did I hear that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any minimum times?
1 day.
1 day.
But it would be very foolish to go for 1 day, because you'll lose a lot of money doing it. And so we deliberated at length about, do we just not let people go short? Because everybody's held to the same standard. Because the way the equation works is the amount that's burned, because remember, the Alive that's produced in the start and end payouts is only considering the burned amount of access. The locked amount isn't a factor of the calculation for how Alive inflation is calculated. Only the access burned is considered when calculating the Alive inflation as a total, as a sum for the start and end payout. So I forget where I was going with this. What was your question again?
And you were saying that you were deciding if you're going to have a minimum amount of staking.
Oh yeah, the minimum.
The stake, and it's just going to be sort of detrimental to them if they stake for too short of a time.
Yeah. So if the system is like super successful and access gets like extremely scarce, and the top players hold like diamond handed, then theoretically the coupon rate could be like locked at 100% or even go higher than that. The instant rebate could go higher than 100%. Hard to believe, I know, But when Axis and Alive are both super scarce and just held by strong whales, it's possible to see a situation where the instant rebate is just higher than 100% for max length commitments, which makes shorter term commitments more profitable. So, like for example, if it was at 100% for a max length commitment, if you did half the amount of time, it should be a 50% instant rebate, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's very interesting. I think that this type of sort of game theory thought process is unique, and because again, to me, it all comes back to Hex, right? We're essentially trying to build a platform that's rising the waters to help Hex stakers get people to stake Hex longer, and therefore it's not just the Axis and the Alive and the communes, but it's all coming back to Hex, which is really what a lot of people have been here, what they started with, and why they're still here following Richard Hart. So I think that's amazing. Zenith,
before you guys go, just let me say that, because that's really good what you said, and like I built my entire brand on Hex. Like what made me who I am today is because of Hex, and I want to honor that, and I want to build on Hex. And the way that I could build on Hex with what the tools that I have created, and which was already been successful, was to bond it to Hex in a way that was meaningful. Just doing a direct bond to Hex, it's always looking for Hex to carry us, but instead in this case, we want to carry Hex a little bit too. And that's an important thing to consider as well.
Yeah, I love that. And we know, look, Hex, you've been in this ecosystem for a long time, throughout the bear market, talking Hex, talking Richard Hart, and to really see you building what you've believed in for so long, it's awesome. I'm super excited for it.
Thanks, man. All right, gentlemen, what do you guys got for me?
I have a quick question regarding Com Token, and I'm pretty sure I don't know much about Com Token. I do know that it is a thing that is rewarded to native Hex stakers, right? It doesn't work for HSI holders.
It's native only for now. I'm pretty sure Synergy is aware of it enough that V2 may make that consideration.
Okay. I thought communist was something separate from when you say Synergy, you mean Alex, right?
Alex. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So communist, for the folks at home who don't know, there's two different ways you can stake Hex for you guys. There's the native on, which is just it's your wallet in the smart contract, and then there's HSIs where there is a wrapped contract that surrounds your Hex stake, so that allows you to tokenize your Hex stake, turn it into an NFT, send it to other wallets, put it up for auction on the icosahedron ecosystem, or you can lend it, you can lend and borrow against it, and like have like a loan and collateralized debt and everything. There's a whole bunch of things that you can do with HSIs. So communist is only available for people who are doing native Hex stakes and not the smart contract and stuff. And my question for you, Axis, is with your new Alive token, this will only work, or you're only bonding it with communists. Is there any sort of forward thinking going on with if Alex does create something with the staking and the new icosahedron V2 stuff going on? Do you have anything cooking up in your mind to respond to that if or when it comes out?
Nothing to announce at this time, but look, if there's a system out there that's going to make Hex more valuable, I'll be doing what I can to support those things. So
excellent.
It's a good thing to think about, I think, right? I think it's good to think about the ways that I can help it now. And this is the first one. So, I'm not that it's the end. Like I said, Alive is modular. So it should create ultra scarcity of access, which means that the system should grow in value. And most of the Alive is on the back end. So it's even Alive will still be scarce for the first like 4 and 5 years. So you could potentially use that deflation or scarcity as a way to bond it to almost anything that you want to see price appreciation on, so long as it's equal or smaller in LP size. You start getting into bigger pools though, and it gets a little bit more challenging for me right now. But look, Axis Alive could grow a lot in LP if it's adopted. So the sky's the limit for us, guys. We just got to work together.
Yeah, the last thing you said, work together, right? If something builds, it also helps Hex, and you guys can work together and sort of build a relationship that helps everybody and continues to help Hex, then no brainer if you can make it work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Zenith, did you come off mute? Did you have something to add?
Yeah, I've got, well, I've had something for a little bit here.
Sorry.
So yeah, and this
Take it
kind of
away,
all
brother.
ties together. Oh, excuse me, Jesus. So currently, right now, I'm kind of forming a thesis about how Richard Hart is kind of viewing Hex as sort of like a restart on Bitcoin, and so he's trying to like rebuild Bitcoin. You know, if you miss Bitcoin, you can buy into Hex, and then he's kind of done the same thing with like PulseX with Uniswap and Pulse as Ethereum, right? However, the idea that I'm seeing here is that the community that he's built is a lot like how Bitcoin was originally, where they focused on the one product, which was Bitcoin, and then they started working with the code to try and make it better, right? And that was with Satoshi helping. In this particular case, though, it's not necessarily, you know, the code is finished, right? You're not going to deal with that to make Hex better. What you're doing now is you're creating what's around Hex better. And ultimately, what you're doing now is there's a lot of really smart people like you who are trying to build products, so to say, that are taking the building of Hex, right, and are building around it to be able to lift Hex even higher and incentivize people to actually want to get into it. And that, I think that's the biggest thing that we have the takeaway here, because as far as I'm hearing from Axis and Alive, this is more so like I would say a two cycle type of thing. So if you go and you buy Axis, right, and saying yes, it's going to go up, it's going to be deflationary, and it's going to be, you know, higher in price, I would say that you're a couple of cycles with that, but the long term, it's more of a long term play where you're actually figuring that Hex is going to be way more expensive than it is currently right now. So the problem is that you're running into is when Hex becomes way more expensive, who the hell is going to go buy Hex, right? So that's where the idea comes from. And this is where, you know, staking comes from, where you can continually get that yielding, right? But then the other thing there is like, why are people going to buy Hex, and then why are they going to stake? Well, it's going to be because you get all these little extra sprinkled rewards, which is going to be like, you know, Hedron, Camus. I mean, and then on top of that, you have, say, Actuator, which gives you more of a security blanket that if you actually do buy Hex and stake it, you don't need to be afraid of the lockup, because technically there is a coin that you could pull out just in case of emergencies. And there's even plays that you could pull out. You can stake that Hex the same way as always, and then also be able to pull it out. The one thing I think we're kind of missing right now, unfortunately, and obviously we're just starting, people, so, you know, we still got to build things out, but I think the missing component right now is HSI versus native stake, because that seems to be a disconnecting point right now.
I'm cool with taking this conversation into icosahedron a bit. And look, that was a fledgling system. You know, it was the first thing built on Hex. It was really the first thing built at all. It came out before PulseChain came out. It was, I mean, it came out even before Pulse Dogecoin, if you remember that one. So like, ew. He was in uncharted territory with that one. And so just with some slight modifications, I mean, I don't see why that market isn't just going to take off like crazy. We need to work harder at making the underlying collateral more valuable now. So that's why I'm taking the angle I'm taking on it. But eventually those HSIs are going to be tremendously valuable, assuming that T-shares hold their floor price a lot higher into the future and we don't get the quadruple bear market, which is why I think we started the conversation there. It's like all these things are kind of coming together, and it's easy for those of us that are staring at the screen every single day to see these things and how they can come to fruition. And I'm very optimistic about the future of tradable T-shares, because the market, it's just going to be a secondary market for Hex stakes. And it's a way, it's real value, because you're able to transfer ownership of a staking commitment to an heir, or to a spouse, or to a trust, or to anyone really. Like, it's that inherently at a societal level has value. It's just that it's being mispriced, because Hex has been mispriced because of the great rebalancing that occurred from taking one asset and splitting it into 5. So this is just par for the course. We've been dealing with, we're never going to get 99.89% down ever again, right? This is all going to help fuel that run.
True. It's kind of crazy to think that, icosahedron, actually, that whole ecosystem came out before PulseChain even launched. But when it comes to projects that are trying to incentivize Hex or use Hex stakes as some sort of feature or bug to incentivize staking, I think you're always going to get compared to Hedron and Icosa. So if you could really have a few selling points, what's the main difference between the idea with Communis and what you're trying to do with the Alive token compared to icosahedron?
So the question is, what's the difference between what we're doing and icosahedron?
Yeah, because I think on the surface, I think a lot of people are going to look at it and be like, oh, cool, they're doing stuff with staked Hex and get a reward for it. So what's the difference between these two?
with it's interesting because it's just a matter of mechanics. So both systems pays you some sort of instant reward. In a HSI, you start minting Hedron, and in a native Hex stake, you instantly get a start bonus in COM. And there's a big difference there because the COM start bonus is meaningful and the Hedron yield is not meaningful. And I'm not saying that the Hedron yield can't become meaningful, but what I'm saying is the COM yield of the COM start bonus is already meaningful and can become even more meaningful at a super rapid rate if we're able to accelerate the adoption of COM and make that coupon rate higher sooner and support it at higher levels.
So one of the benefits is that COM is actually getting support and additional underlying benefits from Access to Access Alive. That's going to further, benefit the community. We haven't seen anything else really been, worked with or bonded with or built on top of icosahedron. Not that that is bad per se, what they're doing, but here you're actually adding additional value to that COM, which can bring everything up together in a sense.
Well, so it's cool though, because yes, we're bonding them together, and so if Alive and Access go up in price, they're going to drag COM up, which is going to make long-term stakes get a bigger coupon rate. That's true. But the mechanics of the two systems are virtually the same in that they both have a start payout, they both have an end payout, and they both require an input unit, one's Hex, one's Access, to be pushed through one direction for a long time. The only difference there is that some of the Access is permanently burned, whereas Hex principal always comes, all of that always comes back and it hyperinflates. So that's the difference there mechanically. But otherwise, those two systems are the same. And so because Access is super scarce and there's only 500 coins in the community supply right now, you could see how adoption of Access Alive is going to be like an accelerated version of what Hex and COM could do over 15 years, because there's only 500 community supply of Access, but there's $1.5 billion of Hex in the user supply. So the market cap of Hexus on its own is $11 million or something. The market cap of Hex is $1.5 billion. So you're going to be able to prove the system, because mechanically they're very similar, through Access Alive and bond it to COM to pull it up at the same time as you're proving it, which should act as an amplifier for HexCom and just help people understand it quicker, so we can get on with the show already and get people staking Hex long.
I like it. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but as an outsider looking in, what I see is that the Hedron Icosa system was a project that was intended to add additional functionality to Hex through the HSI, through the auctions, through the loans, all that kind of stuff. Communis is more of an incentive to stake long, and that's the intention for it. It doesn't really add a whole lot of functionality, it just adds incentive. And then it sounds like what you're doing with the Alive token is that you're trying to use bonding to help support Hex in a way that's slightly different than the others, but is still connected inside of the ecosystem.
Absolutely. Yep, that's
Okay.
right. Man, I'm so excited to just share this stuff. I'm tempted to just do a quick demo live. Do you guys think we should? I'm so tempted.
Whatever you're
Look,
comfortable
look,
Oh,
with,
this-
boss.
hey, we'd be so down with a demo.
yeah. How many viewers do we have right now?
45 on
45?
YouTube, another 30 on
Dude,
X.
if I could get you guys to not put the recording up, I would do it.
No one's watching.
here, how
right
about
now.
this? How about
Nobody's
this?
watching. It's just us.
How about this? There. How about this? Community that's listening on live or on the playback. There's no release date for a live yet. Everybody will know at the same time. Okay. Now that I've said that, I'm going to show you guys in the green room a little demo after we cut off.
Okay.
Sweet.
Cool.
As we're talking here, Communis had a 10. It's up 9.3x in 120 days. It just had a massive green candle just now as we're live. So I think people are getting the message. And the issue that the faders are going to get now is that there's no sellers because like 70% of the COM is held by the top 25 wallets and they don't sell. It's all verifiable. You can look into the chain yourself and look in those top 25 wallets. They just don't sell. They get what's going on here. They're called the quad fathers for a reason, right? They're trying to protect and support this coupon rate to try to get this thing going because it's time, guys. It's time to start remembering why Hex was built. And look, dude, I'm not saying stake all your stuff 15 years. Like if you had $100,000 of Hex, I would not stake more than $5,000 for 15 years because the opportunity cost is too great. But that's your hedge and you can get paid $500 now to go do that $5,000 stake. That's all I'm saying. So it's really only going to cost you $4,500 to do a $5,000 stake right now. And if we can double the COM price, you'd get $1,000 back on your $5,000 stake. How cool would that be? And you don't have to put up the whole $100,000 of your liquid Hex to do it. Eventually, the market's going to figure out, the free market will figure out what is the optimal coupon rate to get the most long-term Hex staking adoption at the most affordable price with the least amount of liabilities, meaning dumpable COM. And because the T-share rate always goes up, the amount of COM inflation goes down over time because it's a product of T-shares. I just don't think people understand the power of the system, and it's so important. And by the way, Alive wasn't my idea. Kodiak, the creator of Communis, came to me about the idea, and I was like, we have to do it. It's that good. We have to do it. And so we have been working tirelessly since about March, I would say, on making the most beautiful, bug-free front end that works on desktop and mobile, and with the most transparent data and analytics of any token you've ever seen. You got to think, me and Crispy Man are the ones, gearing away back there, just figuring out what's all the data we could show the world. We're talking like you could pick any dolphin or higher position, click on their wallet, see everything in their wallet, click out to their DBank in one click, go back to the dashboard, see all their LP positions, all their yield, how much percent of their portfolios in Richard Hart coins, how much of their portfolios in the solid index, what percentage of the Axis supply they hold, what percentage of the Alive supply they hold, what they have in their end commitments coming up. I mean, the whole system, like a whole entire page dedicated to the liquidity pools, a whole page dedicated to a leaderboard. Like, it's going to be pretty amazing. You're going to see a lot of people try and copy what we're about to do.
It's exciting, man. And
I got a question real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we talked a little bit about the quad fathers, and aside from having a killer nickname, it does describe the the allocation of the tokens pretty well and a good bit of the behavior. For the folks at home that don't know exactly about what the Axis token supply looks like, can you describe that to the folks along with the Alive token? But it sounds pretty much like Alive is going to start at like near zero, and it can only be created through destroying access through the program.
That's right.
So do you mind going into the governance and like who kind of holds what right now?
Yeah, thanks for that. So this is super important. I want everyone to be very, very clear on this. The way that Axis is set up is there's a cap of 1 million tokens. There's one address that holds 99.95% of that supply. So virtually it's off the market because everything that's been traded and swapped and stuff is in that community supply of about 500 tokens. So for all intents and purposes, the 999,500 tokens that's in the core address, which has been transparent since day one, Doesn't really move that much. Now, the community supply is how the market moves and gets its valuation and trades, and that's your circulating supply, and that's all transparent on the dashboard as well. And you'll be able to see and Alive starts at 0, and the only way for Alive to come into existence and manifest itself is because somebody in that community supply committed their one of the 500 tokens or some portion of a token through the contract. That's the only way Alive gets minted. So it's a fair launch, considering that only the community supply is considered when calculating inflation for Alive. So
Wow.
the concern of Axis inflation over time can be addressed in one way, and that is there will be a chart on the site that shows you historical Axis inflation over time with a projection of where it could go in the future if it were inflated at the same rate. What I can also say is, just based on like the Federal Reserve's mandate of trying to hit that 2% inflation per year, probably isn't good enough for a system like this that's so small and so scarce. You probably have to come in and under that. And my speculation would be that if one were to inflate the Axis supply, it would be in the system's best interest to inflate it at a rate that's less than the amount of Axis being burned on an annual basis.
So potentially some of that, some of the Axis that's in that wallet could slowly drip into the market at some point to help.
What I'm saying is that you'll be able to see if Axis was inflated in the past into the community supply, and you'll also be able to see how it could look in the future. And there's nothing saying that all 1 million tokens couldn't get inflated all at once either. That is a definite risk. So just be aware that when you're playing with a system like this, where there is an OA type wallet, you don't all in, because there's always going to be a risk. That's why you don't all in to Hex and Pulse, because look, there's just the same risk there, virtually, right? There's this, if there's a centralized party that has, or BNB, or whenever there's a centralized party, you have to hedge by not having exposure to that system, by having exposure to another system that's not connected, like ETH or Bitcoin, that doesn't have as much centralized risk, right? So that is, you need to be aware of that when you're playing in the system. However, assuming that everything's kosher, the community supply at 500, you would expect will only deflate over time, because it would be in the best interest of the system to do so.
Makes sense. Zenith, you see your wheels turning before I say anything.
Are there any guardrails in place for, I guess, the actions of a lack of a better term, the OA in this case, which is that there is that just massive amount of the supply, which theoretically, like, can it move? Are you the one that moves it? Is there a plan for it? Like, it just seems like the oh gosh, what is it? The sword of Damocles, so to speak. It's that thing that's kind of
100%.
sitting above us. Okay.
100%. It's God mode. It's the cheat code, right? It's like, look, if the amount of potential for that wallet address won't be understood until like 5 or 10 years from now, of what that could do for the system. So yeah, I'll leave it up to your, I'll leave it up to the imagination.
To take it the other direction, like the theoretical worst case scenario is that whoever owns that wallet just dumps it on the market and effectively saps out all of the economic energy that's in the liquidity pool, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So is there anything that is preventing that sort of scenario from happening?
If that were to occur, and by the way, I don't want to like FUD the whole system from it, but like if that were to occur, what it would do would be a full system state reset. And then the game would reset but then once that's been reset, like somebody else can become the OA, right? So like, now, do we want to see that happen? No, we don't want to see that happen. I mean, I wouldn't want to see that happen. Would you? Like, I would, like, think of Axis as like one of the shining stars on PulseChain that's actually doing a damn thing. And so like to murder a year and a half of productivity and growth would be retarded, in my opinion. But if for some reason that entered the community supply, that would not break the alive calculations of the contract. The contract would just reset based on the new community supply.
So I'm just really curious now. How did you come up with this idea? And like, how long did it take you to actually like fuse this all together?
So Kodiak built Communis and he launched it in January of 2022 because he saw, like, you aren't going to hear this story very many places because he doesn't talk to people, but he saw what was coming because we were going to get diluted by the 4 coins. And he just knew that he had to do something about it. So he coded up Communis to be like a proxy contract that tokenized T-shares that hopefully would be accepted by the community to incentivize long-term staking behavior to help get the system rolling faster. Because for all intents and purposes, PulseChain in and of itself and the 4 coins was the sword of Damocles slicing down through everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's, but besides like a total nuclear destruction of the whole ecosystem, that was about as close as you can get, minus 99.89%. So, but he saw this coming and he decided to create the Communis thing. But what he didn't have is he didn't have a team. He was on his own. His UI sucked. His marketing sucked. All this stuff. So what he saw in Axis, because I was starting to gravitate towards Communis after Johnny Sachs unveiled the secret weapon, was, a smart young team of guys that, communicated together that wanted to help the secret weapon get off the ground. And he saw enough potential there that he had this idea. This guy's got tons of ideas. This was just one of his ideas, was to create this system. And he approached me about using the Axis token, which already had incredible price performance and a loyal following behind it. That was based, like, the whole reason why that existed, side note, was because it was an educational tool to teach chain analysis, liquidity dynamics, and technical analysis, which it's been doing a pretty good job of doing that for my members and for the community at large, because it's pure price action based on just simple buyers and sellers. And there's not a lot of left up for debate or like ominous types of price action. It just is what it is because it's so scarce. And when a user sells, it comes through on the chart, and when a user buys, it comes through on the chart, and you can always chase that back up the chain to find out where it came from. So it really is an instrument for education. So because of this, the tagline goes, Kodiak always says, the whole crypto is all about refining your set of holders. That's it. What did Bitcoin do for the last 15 years? It just kept refining its set of holders to get stronger and stronger diamond hands that was willing to mark it up every cycle more and more and accumulate more of that supply. And now a majority of the Bitcoin supply sits in 1,000 wallets. And
yeah, all traditional financial wallets.
Right. And so, this idea of refining your set of holders is a key component to what's going to make Hex special in the long term, what could make Axis and Alive special in the long term. Just having this really hardcore diamond-handed, cooperative whale pod that can work together to create value instead of extract value. Because ultimately, think about it mechanically. If a system can continue to create value, what does that really look like? Well, instead of one guy taking all the economic energy out in one shot, they could all take out $1,000 a day forever at some point. And what I mean like the whale class, which is always growing because the system's creating value for other users. And also the amount of tokens the amount of Axis tokens it's going to take to be a whale will go down over time, assuming that the Axis community supply goes down over time and deflates because of the lock and burn into the contract. So you may start with one coin today and it makes you one Axis coin today at 22,000 a coin. It makes you a shark. But if the community supply gets to 100 coins, you never had to buy a coin or even interact with the contract at all, and you're now a whale. So yeah, it's really dynamic, guys, and it's like, yeah, it's exciting. It was already a cool blanket, boring ass ERC20 on its own that went up 1,000,000,000% against Pulse, but now we've given it a utility, and that's modular code that you can build on top of in the future as well. So yeah, let your imaginations run wild. You know, Kodiak wants to hear the criticisms of it, and you know, he's begging you guys to try to break it, try to break the game theory. I don't think you can. We've tried, dude. Some of the smartest people in this chain, tokenomics wise, have talked. I mean, we've had 5 and 6 hour calls where I've tried to hammer it out of them, and I just can't break it.
I mean, I love it. It's fantastic. I love that we're one of the first shows to get you on here and talk about this new protocol and how it works, and how it's going to help a lot of aspects of the ecosystem and provide value to the community, right? That's really what this comes back to. So I think what we'll probably do now is do some shout outs. And then we will, I will also say though, you know, Zenith, you said that the OA could essentially dump all those tokens. Worst case, positive case, they could burn some for Alive, and that reduces the overall supply of access too, right? So both possibilities.
So there's this hypothetical as well, and that's that. So there is emergency end commitments. If you end a commitment before 50%, all of the access that you locked gets burned permanently forever, and the Alive end payout gets burned permanently forever and disappears out of the supply. Huh. So theoretically, the OA could push through a huge chunk and then EES it early, and all of it would be auto burned. So it's not out of the question of a possibility. And then the other side of that coin is if you make it to 50% of your commitment, get to 51%, you can end it early, but you lose all the Alive end payout, but you get back your locked access. So this would be the guys that get to like year 5 on a commitment, and Axis, they bought it at 10 grand, and Axis is up to like 100, 200K. And they're like, you know, that's enough for me. I'm going to take half my deposit back and be up, you know, 10X on my bag and just walk. So we figured, like, don't want to penalize people so much that they can't end early if they need money in a pinch, like, you know, Kareem or someone. But so yeah, dude, the game theory on this goes deep. Anyways, I appreciate the time. I hope, you know, I felt like I did a pretty good job explaining some of these concepts to the best that I can, you know, because there's limitations to what I can speak to, you know, sure. So being the founder, but it's going to be a fun ride, guys. I'm very excited for it.
So, Axis, are you going to launch a website first before the token launches? Like, will there be a website where people can watch his videos, read white paper, read some of the game theory before the token actually launches?
I'll be doing a live stream public demo and launch day announcement on the same day. It'll be announced on X, and then I'll do the stream, and you'll be able to go on to testnet on the website and play around before it launches.
Awesome. And we might even get a little taste of it in the green room after this. But hey, let's do some quick chat shout outs. We've had a lot of people in the chat, a lot of people participating. A lot of people are excited to this, I can tell. And why wouldn't they be? So let's give some chat shout outs, and then we'll get to a close. Miss Producer.
Don't forget to pull up that com chart right at the end too. I got it right at the end.
We will. Axis, if you don't mind sharing your screen, we'll let you go through that real quick.
Yeah, it's up.
Once we do the chat shout outs.
Yeah, so this is Communis from the lows of June of 2023 to the high there. It did like 191x, and then this is when the world found out about the secret weapon, and so we've been consolidating inside of here. We broke out recently, and over the last 120 days, it's done a 10x.
That chart is
and this is against Pulse. So this is like you could have 10x your Pulse by buying it down here. This was a $7,000 quad down here. That quad is now $57,000 up here.
That's a bullish chart.
Oh yeah, this is scary, guys. It's scary bullish.
For the folks at home, when you say quad, are you talking about one quad is like 1 quadrillion tokens?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Insane. That chart's it's gorgeous.
That's insane. Yeah. Thanks guys for letting me show that. Yeah, because this all happened today. So I was like, I didn't expect that.
Yeah, and I was looking at it before we went on stream, and I'm like, wow, I don't know if you planned this or if somebody planned this, knowing that we're going to start talking about this. But honestly, I know you were on another stream before this. There were like 200 people watching. I think people might have just been excited and started buying this stuff up. So we shall see. We shall see. So, Miss Producer, we can bring up some chat shout-outs, and we got a bunch of new chats in here. KN20, good evening from Wyethville, Virginia. Good evening. Can Access analyze COM in relation to HEX? It's up over 135% today.
We just did.
That chart was phenomenal. Thank you for that shout out. Frank Palanchik, peace, gentlemen. Always great to have you, my friend. El Sizzle, who believes the hardest? Well, I can tell you all the people here believe very hard. Hard. Hex Glenn, waving hand. What's up, buddy? Great to see you as always. The Mr. Max, the Power Team. Something like that. Just live on the COM site, the staking is only staking COM, not actual HEX. Yes, that's correct. The COM site, you are staking COM, not anything else.
I can answer that just quick. So in Communis, you cannot buy COM off the market and go stake it. You can only stake COM if you made a HEX stake and you have not yet claimed the COM into your wallet. So so that's an important thing. Like, don't go try to buy COM and try to stake it. It doesn't work like that.
And it's only at the beginning of your stake or the end of the stake that you can claim and then stake that COM.
Yep.
So both those times you have that ability. And then once you stake it, and then once you stake it, there's not a lockup time. You can unstake it whenever you want.
That's right.
So it behooves you to stake it, right? It just does, because there's no you can take that out at any time. Thank you. Crypto Stylist. Good morning, Degens. Good morning. Good morning. Crypto Compassion. I see you all cooking. Good to see everybody. Welcome. Great to see you as well.
The dev is cooking. The dev is cooking.
Conspiracy Crypto. All these crypto people. What's up, fam? Sandy Beach. Hello, Degen Roundtable Access and everyone. Good to catch you live. Yeah, we're always happy to see you live, Sandy. Thank you. Thank you for glad you could be here. Matias Vera. Trump or Harris, guys? Well,
by the data, Trump is doing very well compared to Harris right now. So I'll just say that much. But at the same time, it can get wild out there. So not going to read too much into that one.
I think Kay Hudson said it best about the COM chart. Yeah.
Looks Dem chart at 2 a.m. on election night.
That's nasty.
Up and to the right. Where'd all these numbers come from? Panda Bagu. Awesome. It's great stuff. Honestly, this is a really cool protocol coming out. Crispy himself. I feel alive. And I believe that
literally every time we stream with Crispy, at the end of it, I'm always just like, I need more T-shares. He's showing me the sauce. I need more.
That guy single-handedly got me to stake 5555 twice this year.
I love that guy.
Fantastic.
A bit of a reference to the stream that you, me, and Crispy did. I think it was last week, was it? But it was talking about the game theory behind just on T-shares alone. If you've wanted to be like a dolphin or a shark or even a whale in the system in the year 2039 via T-shares, it's actually a lot easier to do so than you might think. Crazy to think about.
Yeah, I think it's Crispy, just tell us. I think it was like you only needed like 30 T-shares to be a whale in that year at one point. Now it was like up to 300, I think. So 300 T-shares in 2039 got you to a whale. Maybe I'm wrong. It's not many. And down when we were at the bottom on PHEX, it was like not that much money either. Now it's 5x that. It's crazy how fast that punishes you. That's why you can't ever just sell your whole bag of HEX. I don't really like selling HEX. I don't feel good about selling HEX. Never have.
For the folks at home who don't know, HEX T-share hex is measured like on the fish whale chart, like so from the Sea Creatures League is the word. It's measured in T-shares. It is not measured in the number of tokens because it's an inflationary So like I believe that a squid is like what, like just like 100 T-shares or something like that, maybe like 99 T-shares, somewhere around there. So like you can get a squid position for relatively, inexpensive compared to, well, like, I mean, and so the whale, and it goes down. So every year the number of T-shares that are available goes down because the price goes up, and there's only so many tokens that are available. So
Agreed. So the Sea Creature League analogy is based on like a base 10 system. So theoretically, if you own 1% of all T-shares, you are a whale. If you own 10%, you are a Poseidon. Crispy was saying that there used to be a Poseidon projected to exist in 2039 based on T-shares, but I think we just fell off that, and the guy like just dropped below that 10% ratio. So yeah, if you're interested in that, it's like being a whale is 1% of all T-shares. It sounds kind of crazy, but because the T-share rate is always increasing, it means that the number of T-shares is only going to be decreasing theoretically into the future.
So get your T-shares, get those stakes, and we need these. We need this alive to launch soon to help.
I'm just saying
take more.
It really is designed to pay the people who got in early and had the conviction to stake long when it looked like there was not a lot of reason to do so.
Yep.
That's at least what I'm seeing out here.
It also keeps you from cheating your bags when you're under a cent and people selling hex. Like, come on. But hey, that being said, we are wrapped up to about 9:30. Axis, I know you've been on streams back to back, so I don't want to keep you too long. And honestly, this was awesome conversation just about the whole ecosystem, about what you're building, about how this community is really coming together to bring more value to the core coins like Hex. Look, like we've said before, PulseChain was kind of built to benefit Hex, right? Like it's hard to end stakes on ETH when gas prices are so expensive. So as we add more things on these layers to help Hex, it's only going to benefit all of us in the long term. So for all those who have been here before, regulars, we thank you. If it's your first time here at the Degen Roundtable, please like, subscribe. We do have a Telegram that you can join, which is right below us, right next to Axis, below Will, that QR code. And this is fantastic. This is one of the first times that we've heard in depth about this new project. And I'm super excited to see it, super excited to hear about it. And I cannot wait till it launches. And maybe I'll just, maybe I won't have any access soon because I'm going to have to lock it up for a live. So that'll be exciting.
Little last thing I'll leave you with on that note is by owning Axis now, it's the equivalent of locking in a future T-share rate in the future. And the reason is because in the same way that the T-share rate goes up forever, the implied Axis community supply should go down forever. So you're buying Axis when it's most abundant, and the equivalent would be buying the T-share in the future at some point at a really high T-share rate, because under the assumption that Axis community supply only decreases. So it's interesting, right? So you may not want to commit, and there's going to be a bit of a game of chicken early on to see who's going to put what where and the timeline. And Alive itself, maybe it would be, maybe you should only hold your Axis for example, and then when somebody comes in and adopts, you get a new adoption and they buy Axis off market, they push Axis up a little bit, they commit it to the system. Let's say they get their Alive back at like 100% coupon rate, let's say, and then they dump that. Well, you would want to be there buying up that Alive supply, because with fresh capital or by converting Axis into Alive potentially, because you may get a better rate. So there's a ratio trade that can happen there too. So there's more to think about in regards to whether or not you would commit.
It's fantastic. And we're going to be listening a lot more. I know you're going on a bunch more streams and you got a lot more to share. So, and then when you do the in-depth test, that's going to be exciting as well. So, honestly, as always, Axis, appreciate it. Anything that you want to add, or where can people find you before we close you out? I did put accessalive.com.
Yeah. Nate, Zenith, Will, Brendan, thank you, gentlemen, for having me on and letting me take up all the airtime and just talking about this new protocol that I think should benefit every Hexagon out there. That's the foundation of it, anyways. And if you want to know more about what I'm doing and get closer to the inner circle, you can go check out accessalive.com, where I do technical analysis on Monday nights for my group. Do like a market recap, usually lasts about an hour and a half, and you have the chance to win a little bit of access in the process. And then on Wednesday nights, I'm doing a 22-part course that is inspired by Crypto Cred, Technical Analysis Master, and it's been adapted for DeFi to include elements of liquidity and chain analysis to help make better decisions in the market. And there's other services there too. If you need a one-on-one, there's consults over there as well. So I'm happy to see you over at accessalive.com. Soon to come, accessalive.app. And yeah, thank you so much, gentlemen. Appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you, brother. Nate, Zenith, Will, I appreciate all of you. Anything you guys want to add real quick? I don't want to get too in depth, but last words.
Yeah, I would just say go ahead, follow me at Twitter, because I am putting out as much information as I possibly can. Just a quick little ploy, right? A little shill from my Twitter. Yeah, I mean, Access, I know that there's a few things I end up looking at that you end up resharing quite often, and it's like it usually has to do with the overall market as a whole, kind of where we're going. I don't think I actually put it out yet, but I was looking at that others chart, and we're like, we need to go into that big pump like this week.
I saw your posts.
You did?
It's time.
It's time. It is time, right? So yeah, it's a big deal. But Zenith, what's going on with you?
Not much, folks. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at ZenithDI. Hit me up with anything you got there. This Friday for book club, I am hosting. We are covering The Prince by the one and only Niccolo Machiavelli. And then after that, we have our usual flagship show on Sunday. And one of the news articles that we already have lined up for that one is Grayscale has announced that they want to do an ETF that is a batch of crypto tokens together. So we're going to be covering all that and more. 8 p.m. Eastern time, Sunday night. We hope to see you there. Will, what you got, brother?
I gotta take myself off mute. You guys, folks at home, you guys can find me at will.pls.fyi. That is where all of my socials are linked. If you guys are a Hexkin and you want to meet up with other Hexkins, or if you want to organize a meetup or something, then go to bit.ly/hex_meetup. That will take you right into the introduction to how to use that Telegram to best go and meet other Hexkins. I've gone ahead and dropped that link in the chat. So, yeah, that's the most coolest thing you can do. Go meet other Hexkins. I will see all you guys that are heading over to the Richard Hart trial in New York. I'll see y'all up there along with Zenith and I believe Nate. And yeah, it's going to be a good time.
Be there.
I look forward to hanging out with everyone. Are you Access? Have you decided if you're going up there or not, or is it up in the air? Are you able to say live on air?
Yep, I'm speaking on. I'm there at the hearing and speaking the day after.
Excellent. Good to see. Good to see. All right. Well, I look forward to seeing everyone. And that's all I got. Brendan, go ahead and take us out, bro.
Thank you all. We know here at the Degen Roundtable that time is your most valuable asset. So thank you for spending some of your time this evening with all of us and learning some fantastic news about this protocol that's going to launch. And we are excited for the future. You can follow me on X at anonymous_bean, which I will be rebranding soon. Looking for ideas for that. But we're super excited. And Degens and Degenettes, get ready. Miss Producer, get that trigger finger ready, because we want to let you all know to degen responsibly.